Amazing. 100 years, and you're in your best position you've been historically. A century of an incredible testimony. And as we heard last night, multiple generations have been eternally impacted because of this church. Today, we don't merely look back with nostalgia, but we're here today to celebrate what God has done, give thanks to where we stand, and to renew our vision for where God is calling us next. It was the psalmist who said in Psalm 127, verse 1, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain." Do you agree with that? If you do, then will you out loud read that verse with me? Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. For 100 years, the Lord's been building this house. Not with steel, brick, mortar, stucco, paint, but he's been building it with living stones. People with faithful hearts, people who've sacrificially given so a next generation can understand the things of God. Boy, I'm the benefactor of that. I'm a third generation Assemblies of God Pentecostal preacher's kid. And all the eternal, significant events in my life took place in the church. I was dedicated as a baby in the church. I was born again in the church, water baptized in the church, spirit baptized in the church. I'm a living example that when the church is functioning biblically, it is one of the most powerful forces for change and transformation that any community can ever have. So who would have ever thought, right? Who would have ever thought that from a small group of believers that gathered in Mr. and Mrs. J.W. Miller's home for a cottage prayer meeting, that today, Northview Church would be a multicultural church transforming the community, impacting the world, reaching people for Jesus. It's a God thing. I said it's a God thing. So today we celebrate the anniversary of this church, but we do a whole lot more than just celebrating the accomplishments. We celebrate God's faithfulness. Psalm 90, verse 2 says this, "From everlasting to everlasting, you are God." From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. I suspect you would agree with me that the church is made up of people who invite you in, point you to Jesus, and then encourage you in your faith. It's that simple. And I want to say thank you, Northview Church, for being a healthy, life-giving church that's impacting the world. Well, on a day like this, what do? I think, first of all, it's always appropriate to look back with gratitude. 100 years ago, a small group of believers kind of caught this vision. They saw not what was, but they saw what could be. Hey, can I ask you, aren't you thankful somewhere in your life somebody saw you for who you can be, not just who you were? Yeah, I am. They dreamed of a place where the gospel would be preached, where hurting people, broken people would find healing, where children would learn about Jesus and develop a biblical worldview, and where a community of people would be built on his name, not a personality. I think of those founding members. Pastor last night mentioned many of them. I met a relative this morning in the first service, 97 years old, and she said she laid the carpet in this church. Most of those founding members are with Jesus. Boy, they gave, they prayed, they worked. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't have the internet or social media or Amazon to buy things last minute. But boy, they had faith. They had faith. They didn't have at all unlimited resources or unlimited technology, but what they did had was an unlimited trust in an unlimited God. And through the decades, as we heard Pastor shared this morning, this church has baptized hundreds of people into the family of God. This church has seen hundreds of married couples build Christian homes. This church has fed hungry children and clothed those who are in need. This church has raised up the next generation of young people to follow Jesus. So yeah, we look back with gratitude and say, thank you, Lord, for what you have done. But we don't stop there, because that brings us to the present. And we commit ourselves to standing strong, to standing firm in the present. Now, you know that Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I find it interesting. He didn't say that the gates of hell might not prevail. He didn't say that the gates of hell probably won't prevail. He said the gates of hell will not or shall not. That's a promise. This church, for 100 years, yeah, it's weathered a few storms. It's faced some financial challenges, some cultural challenges, leadership transitions. It's survived during a global pandemic. And yet here we sit today. And can I just remind you of a simple truth that I know you know? This church is strong, not because of us, but because the foundation is Jesus Christ. This church is strong because of Jesus. And so it's true, we're not the same that we were 100 years ago. And that's the way it should be. There's new faces, new families, new methods of reaching people, but the message of this church remains the same. Jesus Christ is Lord, and in him alone is salvation, and his promises are yes and amen, and the promises of God work. That's what this church stands for. I have so many lessons in life and character forming issues in my own life from the church, because one of the things I've experienced about church is that God often fulfills his promises through people in the church. In the church, together, being together. As I mentioned, I'm a third generation Pentecostal preacher's kid, so I was born and raised in this thing, right? My mom was the minister of music. My dad was the pastor. I cut my teeth on the back of church pews. In fact, there were a lot of Sunday nights I fell asleep in that church pew. And a handful of Sunday nights I was left sleeping in that church pew. Mom thought dad was going to take me home. Dad thought mom was going to take me home. Listen, you can sing all you want, how great is our God, great is our faithfulness. When you wake up, the lights are out in a church. That's a spooky place to wake up, I'm just telling you. Love the church. My dad died when I was 9 years old, but I never felt the negative impact of being raised by a single mom because I was a part of a great church like this. I felt the call of God on my life to go into the ministry. And so on a Sunday night, my senior year, I discovered one more time that God often fulfills his promises through his people in the local church. In our church, on the first Sunday night in August, it was always considered back to school night. The emphasis on Sunday night was kids going back to school, maybe some campus missionaries, college students that would be going off, people in the church that were involved in teaching or education. There would be a special prayer time. And that was always a fun service, except this Sunday night, in between my senior year and what should be my first year in college. We had limited income. My mom, we lived off of Social Security and a small stipend that she made as being the minister of music. And it was about July that I came to the reality I didn't have enough money to start my first year at Central Bible College to prepare to go into the ministry. So I had come to the realization that I'm going to have to stay home a year, get a job, make some money, and go to school. Nothing wrong with that, but boy, when you're in an environment on a back-to-school rally, it's just kind of up there in your head. I never forget, they prayed for different students, and the one time they called for all of the students that would be leaving and going off to college, come forward and be prayed for. Wasn't me. I just sat in the pew. Well, the service concluded and people were leaving, and I just sat in the pew thinking, Lord, I wish I were going off to school. I wish somehow, but all right, I got to get my head wrapped around putting a resume together, finding a job, and earning some income. And about that time, brother and sister Bailey, Vern and Shirley Bailey, who were potato farmers from Wauseon, Ohio, just a simple couple that were a part of our church, they kind of came up and sat down on either side of me. Sister Bailey threw her arm around me, and Brother Bailey was sitting there just very proper. Sister Bailey said, Doug, we're so proud of you. We've watched you grow up in this church, and we know God has his hand on your life. We just want you to know how much we love and appreciate you. And I was just kind of, yeah, thank you, shaking my head. And she says, well, we'd like to do a little something for you. I said, oh, thank you. She said, Vern, you tell him. And so Brother Bailey says, well, yes, Doug, as Sister Bailey said, we've seen your life, and well, we want to do something. And he reached into his pocket and he handed me an envelope. I said, thank you, that's very kind of you guys. And Sister Bailey said, open it. In my mind, I'm thinking it's some McDonald's coupons, or maybe an Arby's coupon, buy one, get one free type sandwich. And so I took the envelope and I opened it up. And when I pulled out a check, there was a check made out to Central Bible College in the amount of my first tuition for the first full year. And in that moment, I one more time realized that God often accomplishes the miraculous through his people in the house of God. Can I tell you, those kind of things may not happen at Starbucks. They probably won't happen at CrossFit, but I promise you, they will happen within the body of Christ. So we stand strong in the present, knowing that the church is the community of God's people called to come together to advance the kingdom of God. That's why the writer of Hebrews says, consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Yeah, we look back and we're thankful with gratitude for what God has done, but we recommit ourselves in the church today that we're going to be a word-centered church, a Pentecostal church, a community-minded church, and we commit ourselves to building a church not just for us, but for those who are not yet a part of it. That's the desire of this church. I also think in a day like this, it's important for us to look forward with vision. Made for More is not just a unique slogan that gets passed around for events like this. You see, a type of anniversary like this is not a finish line today. It's a milestone of a continuing journey. A journey of God's. So the question we need to ask ourselves is not how do we preserve, but rather we ask ourselves, how do we faithfully keep moving forward to what God has already put into motion? And I pray that the next 100 years, should Jesus not come back and receive us unto himself, sure, I can't predict that we're not going to face a lot of challenges, and technology will continue to advance, culture will continue to shift, new generations will continue to rise up. But aren't you thankful that the message of Jesus is still the same yesterday, today, and forever? So what would it look like? What would it look like if going into the 101st year of our church's existence, that we recommit ourselves to what characterized that first group of believers? They prayed with fervency. They gave sacrificially. They served with incredible dedication. And they loved people with an incredible abandonment. And whether they met at a cottage for a prayer meeting or they met together in a temple. There was something about that early church that when they got together, the presence of Jesus was there. They weren't just a religious fraternity. They weren't just a group of people that were rebelling against the institutional church that some of their families were a part. They came together to experience Jesus. Aren't you thankful that church is a place where you can experience the presence of Jesus? I'm telling you, friends, presence changes everything. I get it. You can go to church online. You can follow your favorite pastor and listen to sermons on YouTube. You can download your favorite genre of worship on Spotify. But there's something about gathering together in person. There's something about being together with people of like faith that grants to us presence. Church is an opportunity to take a break from doing life horizontally and allowing a vertical perspective to come into play. Presence. Made for more is to expand the capacity to bring God's presence into people's lives. I learned a powerful example of presence through my oldest grandson, Jackson. Hey, can I ask, are there any grandparents in the house? If you're a grandparent, raise your, come on, raise your hand if you're a grandparent. Grandparenting is awesome. I have 8 grandchildren, ages 14 to 3. I'm accompanied by one of my grandsons on this trip, Callum. And here's what I've discovered about grandparenting. The reason why grandparents and grandchildren get along so well, it's because we have the same common enemy, their parents. It's true. Your laughter gives it away. A few years ago, Jackson, my oldest grandson, he and I decided it would be okay for him to have an overnighter at Papa's house, but it took some convincing of his mom, my firstborn, that it would be okay. Well, we tag teamed together and we brought her into submission to this idea would be okay. Another CrossFit slip right there, I'm sorry. But we said it would be okay, and I'll never forget. I drove over to pick him up from his house, and when I pulled into the driveway, he was standing there in his Spider-Man backpack, and it was jammed full. It had gummy bears, gummy worms, Paw Patrol DVDs, all kinds of stuff. And I pulled into the driveway, and he said, "Papa." I said, "Jackson, you ready to come to Papa's house?" He said, yeah, I am. So I went up to the door, I grabbed his hand, we started walking back to my truck, when all of a sudden his mom, my firstborn, clears her throat, says, "Dad." I said, "Yeah." She hands me a 3x5 card with a set of 6 very specific instructions on them. I'm thinking I raised her better than this. So I start reading these instructions, right? And I get down to instruction number 3. It says, "Dad, after 6 p.m., please make sure you put 2 parts water, 1 part apple juice in his sippy cup." Well, I'm thinking, first of all, we don't do mixed drinks at Papa's house. We're 100% Dr. Pepper at Papa's house. Come on. 2 parts water, 1 part. Yeah, I got it, babe. We got in the truck. I tore that sucker up. I said, "Come on, Jackson, we're going to have fun." And we did. We played wiffle ball outside. We played hide and go seek. We watched Paw Patrol cartoon. We ate a lot of gummy bears, gummy fish, all that stuff. And it was great. It was great. Textbook. He got his bath. He got his jammies on. And just about the time he was to retire, a southwest Missouri storm whipped up. Loud thunder, flashing lightning. And I could tell my little buddy was anxious. So I said, "Jackson, do you want to sleep in Papa's room?" He said, yeah, I do. So I made a sleeping area just down on the floor on my side of the bed, some blankets and pillows. I said, now lay down. So he'd lay down, boom, a crack of thunder, he'd jump up. I'd say, "You're okay, little buddy, lay back down." He'd lay down, a flash of lightning would hit, he'd pop up. This happened about 4 times. And then I said something. Now, I don't know who programmed this in me, because what I said to him makes no meteorological sense, certainly makes no theological sense. I just wanted him to fall asleep. He pops up. I said, Jackson, listen, little buddy. You don't have to worry about thunder. After all, thunder is nothing more than just God moving his furniture up in heaven. Don't judge me, Grandma. Don't judge me. You would have put Robitussin in that sippy cup, so don't judge me. He says, oh, okay, laid back down. Next crack of thunder, he didn't jump up. I'm like, cool. I'll let his kids pastor work on his theology. I just want him to fall asleep. So he lays down, I roll over, I'm thinking all is good, and then boom, a loud reverberating thunder hit. And I'm laying this way, but come on, grandparents, we have an extra sense. I could feel a set of eyes just looking at me. So I roll over, and sure enough, he's not standing all the way up. He's just looking above the mattress. He's just kind of looking above. His eyes are wide open, and I roll over. Before I could say anything, he looks at me and he says, hey, Papa, you think that I could lay with you till God quits moving his furniture? I said, you bet, little buddy. So I picked him up and I plopped him down in bed with me, and in 60 seconds he was out. I couldn't convince him that the storm on the outside wouldn't hurt him on the inside. But how many of you know, as long as he was in close proximity to Papa, he had a sense of security to rest comfortably, to be able to fall asleep? I'm telling you, friends, sometimes what Fargo needs is just the presence of Jesus. They need to be reminded that his name is a strong tower where the righteous can run and are safe. They need to be reminded that God is our refuge, God is our strength, God is an ever-present help in time of trouble. And this church, week after week after week, gets to represent that God isn't just some cosmic killjoy in outer space. He is an ever-present God, right here, right now, right next to us, present God. And so I want to thank you for being a church that continually creates an opportunity for the presence of God to be experienced. I'm going to ask the worship team to come back. And I think about, so we talk about the faithfulness of the past. We say, yeah, we want to stay firm in our present, and we're going to look forward to creating more space and place for next generation to grow in our effectiveness. But what about you? What part do you play in the church now? And I want to speak to 4 groups of people before I close this morning. First of all, to those of you who have been here for some time, thank you. Thanks for your faithfulness. Thanks for laying a foundation strong enough to bear the weight of the growth that you're currently experiencing. Your stories, your prayers, your example, they're treasures that I promise you this church will never lose. And I just bless you in the name of the Lord. For those of you who are here and you're in your middle years, you're the bridge. You carry the wisdom from the past. Some of your relatives were here and you know the past, but you bring energy to the future. Don't ever underestimate your importance in the moment now. To the young families and the youth of this church, we talked about it last night. You're not the church of tomorrow. You're very much the church of today. Your fresh eyes, your fresh passion, your questions. Man, that's exactly what we need. I experienced that on my drive to church today. My 10-year-old grandson, Callum's with me, and so we were just kind of talking about, Papa, what's it going to be like? And I said, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. He said, Papa, can I ask you a question? How come no kids ministry ever does a study in Revelation? I don't know. Maybe God's calling you to write a book and we'll send it to focus on the family and I'll retire because a 10-year-old can explain the mysteries of Revelation. But I thought, how cool, 4th generation, preacher's kid on his way to church. Papa, how come? We need that kind of freshness. We need that fresh question. That's exactly what we need because the baton is being passed. But there's a fourth group of people that are here this morning, and that's those of you who are new. Maybe those of you who were baptized just last week. If you're new to Northview, can I say welcome, and you are not late to the story. You're right on time. You're right on time for the next chapter that's being written in this church's history. God brought you here for such a time as this. So, okay, let's be honest, 100 years from now, Lord willing, another congregation, another pastor, they're going to have a special anniversary for the 200th anniversary of this church. They're going to speak of this day. They're going to tell the stories of our faithfulness or our failure. They will reap what we sow. And I just wonder, what kind of legacy will we leave for them? Will they talk about our fervent prayer? Will they talk about our desire to reach people for Jesus? Will they talk about our commitment to creating an atmosphere where the presence of Jesus can be experienced week after week after week? I hope so. I hope we'll be the church that's not known with a theme song that says, "Those were the days, my friend." But I hope we'll be the church that says, "Hey, come and see what the Lord is doing in our midst. Come and experience the goodness of God right here and right now." So thank you.